All right, today we are diving into an incredibly intense and absolutely fascinating story. We're going to unpack a gripping Nollywood drama that honestly serves as this massive, real-world case study on relationship dynamics, addiction, and, most importantly, extreme tough love. We're following a couple named Iguay and Ephosa, and let me tell you, this narrative takes that whole in sickness and in health vow and pushes it literally to the absolute breaking point. It's a masterclass in watching a marriage teeter right on the edge of collapse, and in this explainer, we're going to break down the psychology behind every single twist.
Just imagine someone walking up to you and saying, "Look at you now. You're looking older than your age because you're carrying two people's load." That's exactly what a friend tells our main character, Iguay, and it brilliantly sets up the emotional stakes right out of the date. Iguay isn't just tired, She's completely crushed under the weight of her own marriage. She's this highly successful career woman, but she comes home to a situation that is just draining the life out of her. She is the sole provider. She's paying the rent, buying the groceries, basically holding the entire universe together while her husband just spirals. That quote perfectly captures the invisible, suffocating burden of being the only responsible adult in a partnership. So, let's get into part 1, the gambler and the boss. This really sets up the foundation of our conflict. It's honestly wild when you look at the sheer polarity between these two characters. On one hand, we've got Iguay. She's a high-level boss at a company called Evermore International. She's disciplined, exhausted, and frantically trying to keep her family afloat. Then, on the flip side, we have her husband, Ephosa. He's jobless, entirely consumed by a betting addiction, and get this, on the streets, he's actually known as the Iguay, or the king of gambling, which, frankly, is a pretty bold title for a guy who literally pawned his own shoes just to place a bet. And yet, despite bringing absolutely nothing to the table financially, he still demands all the respect and authority of a traditional head of the house. And you kind of have to hear how he justifies all this to understand the profound delusion of his addiction. Ephosa isn't just making a couple of bad financial choices. He genuinely believes he's divinely destined for a massive jackpot. When Iguay rightfully confronts him about blowing their money, he throws this logic at her. He claims a figure appeared to him in a dream, handed him 2 sure odds, and promised him wealth. In his mind, gambling is his job. He doesn't see his daily betting as a destructive habit at all. He sees it as an impending triumph. So Iguay isn't just fighting a bad habit here. She's fighting her husband's completely distorted reality.
Moving on to Section 2, a reversal of roles. This is where things turn into a massive psychological gamble.
Pushed completely to the brink and sick of being called useless, Ephosa finally demands a job. But, of course, not just any job. He wants to work at Evermore International, the exact same company where his wife is a big-shot boss. Now, Iguay could have easily just said no, but instead, she makes this incredibly fascinating tough love decision. She agrees to get him hired, but specifically for the lowest-ranking position in the entire building, the office errand boy. She figures, okay, words clearly aren't working, so let's let reality do the teaching. She's literally gambling her own professional peace of mind just to expose him to the harsh, grueling reality of honest work. But she doesn't just hand him a mop and walk away. Iguay sets some incredibly ruthless ground rules to make this work. First off, they have to act like complete strangers. If HR finds out they're married, they both get fired. Second, he is literally going to be running errands for everyone in the office. And third, and this is the absolute kicker, Iguay promises she will never, under any circumstances, defend him. If her coworkers treat him like garbage, she will not step in. She flat out refuses to save him from his own inflated ego. It's an absolutely stunning boundary to draw, forcing Ephosa to stand entirely on his own 2 feet for once.
Which brings us to part 3, the breaking point, and sadly, some serious toxic retaliation.
Let's just track how Ephosa's disastrous first day as an errand boy plays out. Step 1. He is immediately bombarded with these chaotic, complex lunch orders from the staff. Pounded yam, jollof rice, beans, very specific types of juice. It's totally overwhelming for him. Step 2, he completely bombs it. He brings back palm wine instead of juice, scrambles all the food orders, and has to just stand there and take some really vicious public insults, with people literally calling him a useless man. And then, step 3, the ultimate humiliation. The company accountant spills tea on the floor and barks at Ephosa to mop it up. And all the while his wife, the boss, is sitting right there watching and doesn't say a single word. That pride he's guarded so fiercely, it's just instantly shattered by the workplace hierarchy.
Well, what happens when a highly prideful man gets humiliated like that? He retaliates where he still thinks he has the power, at home. And this is where the psychological backlash gets truly toxic. Instead of, learning some humility, Ephosa comes home and decides to punish his exhausted wife. He wakes her up in the middle of the night and actually demands she physically pound yam for his dinner, completely rejecting the food she had already cooked for him. He keeps changing his mind on a whim, demanding different soups, just to sit there and watch her scramble. He is deliberately inflicting pain to claw back his own lost sense of control.
You really have to stop and ask yourself here, can a marriage actually survive this level of toxic pride and resentment? I mean, we have hit absolute emotional rock bottom. Ego is physically exhausted from being the sole breadwinner and emotionally hollowed out from being abused in her own home by a partner who deeply resents her success. At this specific point in the story, the relationship feels completely unsalvageable. Ephosa isn't learning, he's just doubling down on his absolute worst traits.
But let's shift gears to part 4, redemption, and finding a totally new path.
Here is the turning point. Ephosa finally leaves Ego's company and hits the actual streets to find real work. And he secures this grueling job as a personal assistant, which really just means doing intense, back-breaking manual labor on construction sites. We're talking carrying cement, washing plates, whatever it takes. By the end of day 1, the physical exhaustion absolutely wrecks him. But by week 2, something amazing happens, a profound psychological shift. The sheer pain of the labor forces him to drop his gambling habits because suddenly he understands how incredibly hard it is to actually earn $1. And by month 1, he takes that honest pay and buys his wife new clothes. The manual labor essentially cures the delusion.
And that leads to this incredible, genuinely moving moment of self-awareness. Ephosa is sitting there and finally admits, imagine how tired Ego must have been all those times when I woke her up in the middle of the night to cook fresh meals. This is genuine, undeniable human growth. He comes home from his new job so incredibly exhausted he can barely stand up, and empathy just finally clicks into place. He's not just defeated by life, he actually understands his wife's pain for the very first time. He looks back at his past actions and doesn't see a traditional husband exercising his rights, he just sees absolute wickedness. But wait, Ego is not quite done yet. She pulls off one final brilliant test. Right around the time Ephosa gets that first real paycheck, Ego comes home and pretends she's been fired. She literally fakes losing her job just to see how he's going to react. Does he panic? Does he run right back to the betting shop? No way. He steps up, he comforts her, promises to take on the financial burden himself, and proves that this transformation is the real deal. Her ultimate gamble on tough love, pushing him into the brutal reality of the workforce and then completely yanking away her safety net, it actually paid off. All of this really leaves us with one huge provocative question to chew on. When you're dealing with a partner's downward spiral, where exactly is the line between destructive enabling and life-saving tough love? Ego had to risk her entire marriage, endure awful humiliation, and play some seriously heavy psychological cards just to pull her husband back from the brink. It was a massive gamble. But it definitely makes you wonder, how much weight should one person have to carry before they finally just let the other person fall? It's a fascinating question, and one I hope leaves you wanting to explore these complex relationship dynamics even further. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.